the Department of Communication. I'm also Associate Director for the Center for Research on Teaching and Learning Excellence and the QEP Director for the university as well. And I'll talk about what the QEP is coming up just a little bit in this particular session. Now, just thinking about it, I've been teaching in higher education now for over 20 years. And started off as a master's student at the University of Florida, working with a professor, teaching some sections of a class, and then into my PhD, again teaching, but this time was given my own classes to teach, and then here as at the University of Texas at Arlington for the last 17 years, and started to just, think about this and realize, I've learned probably more in the last year or so working with Dr. Cavallo and all of the faculty fellows and everybody here as part of CRTLE than probably I learned in the preceding years in terms of teaching. Some of the stuff, I was doing because it just seemed right and I kind of knew, but I didn't know necessarily why I was doing it. But then there's other techniques and just little things, just little nuances that you can always add in your class to make your class more engaging and more effective. And so this conference, I never had anything like this when I was a graduate student. And I really, wish I had looking back, because I think it would have helped me through some of the things that I encountered. What we're going to talk about today is in this session is collaboration versus via teamwork, and this notion that there's no I in team, which is what I sort of titled it. There's no I in team, and when you think about it, when you think about this term, there's no I in team. We may hear about that in sports. Coaches always talk about this stuff. It's a team effort. There's no I in team, but I want to ask you: is that true? When you think about a team, there's no I in team. Well, obviously there's no letter I in team, but the bottom line is that there are I's in team. There are individuals as part of every team. A team is made up of individuals and people from different backgrounds, different perspectives, maybe different ages, different genders, all kinds of different things come together. And so we're all individuals. And any time that you get a group of individuals and you put them together and you ask them to work together, you're going to encounter problems. It never is going to work out just like you would like it to do. And yet there are things that we can do to overcome that. And oftentimes in our courses, this is what we do. We say, oh, we're going to do a group project. Let's just put you together and you're going to work together. And that's where it ends. And then we wonder, why are there issues? Why are they not working together well? Why is there problems coming? And that's because, there are individuals in that team. So I want to take a sort of a bigger perspective, first of all, and just talk about this thing, teamwork. Why is it so important? And why is it something that we should be focusing on in our classes? And if you look at the slide here, marketable skills, these are skills that either executives or hiring managers say that they are looking for in new graduates or new employees. And so they're looking for employees that have good oral communication or written communication. So communication is always one of the top 5 skills. And these are also core competencies that our students are often, the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, these are core areas that they want us to assess in some of our beginning classes as well. But communication is always huge. Critical thinking, the ability to be able to think through problems and complex problem solving is always there. But teamwork is always among them, is always part of these marketable skills that employers say that they're looking for from our students. Before we go any further, I want to ask you, what comes to mind when you think of your teamwork experience in high school or college? I'm going to put a link here in the chat. And it's a poll, and I want you to click on that link, and I want you to type in a word or a couple of words that what comes to mind when you think of your teamwork experience. When you were in high school, when you were in college, what comes to mind? And so I'm going to wait just a minute or two as you start to populate that. So click on the link and start to just type in, and we'll see what comes up. Let me, in fact, what I'm going to do is unshare my screen, and then I'm going to share the screen that has the poll. I need some more words. I need some more responses. There we go. Now we're getting there. So let me share the screen. And so you can start to see what the responses are. Work is the most common thing, but unfair, unbalanced, problems, unequal, distribution, so unequal distribution, one person, one, inequality, frustrating. I'm not seeing a lot of, I see a few, but not a lot. There's fun, there's good. Any more? Anybody else want to add to this poll? We're doing this this is my first time using this. Dr. Cavallo's used it before, but I've never used this. So again, skills, others doing, overcoming, frustrating, unequal, unfair, unbalanced, inequality. So there's some positives there, and you can put stuff in the chat too if you want to. If you want to put some things in the chat, feel free to do that. But I'll keep this up. Working together is one. Yeah. So I'm going to get out of this now. I'll keep it up, so feel free to continue to add to that if you want to. But I'm going to go back to the presentation. And Tom makes a very good point. Team members need to have resources to develop teamwork skills. Definitely. So we got bonding is another one. Unequal distribution, though, there's all kinds of different ones. Some of you think back and you've got positive experiences, and a lot of you think back and you've got negative experiences when you think about teamwork. I had, in fact, I gave this a similar talk to new faculty recently, and one of the new faculty said, "I'm going to ask all my former team members to be pallbearers at my funeral so they can let me down one more time." So here's the dilemma. That we face, and Amy is very true here. It can be a bonding experience when the expectations are clear and met by all. So here's the dilemma that we face. Employers want teamwork, and so here are a list of some of the employers that are in the city of Arlington around. So the city itself, and Lockheed Martin, Texas Health, AISD, Bell, they're all there, and I know people from a lot of these different institutions or entities, and they're all looking for teamwork from graduates. Students notoriously dislike teamwork. If you were to poll the students in your course, if you were to talk to them about the fact that we're going to work together, either in groups or we're going to work together in teams, and I realize there is a difference between teams and groups, but we'll sort of use the teamwork as kind of a generic term. Students dislike it. It's not usually a good experience for them, and there are a number of different reasons for it, and I think some of what you've even put in the chat there kind of speaks to why students dislike teamwork. And that's because expectations are not always clear. They're not always met. And that team members do not always have the resources that are available or that they need to have a good experience. This comes from a instructor in economics when she polled her students and she asked them, "What are your thoughts about teamwork? What do you think about working together?" And these were a couple of the responses. Most students do not like to rely on other people when it comes to their work, but they recognize the importance of team-based work for their careers. So the students themselves are facing a dilemma. They want to be able to do the work because they think that maybe they're the most qualified or that they're able to be in charge or be in control of what's happening. And they don't want to have to rely on other people because maybe they don't have the same work ethic or the same standards or whatever. But they also realize that teamwork is important. Students feel strongly that they always contribute to team-based projects, but they always also feel that there's almost at least one team member that does not pull their weight. Many believe that these members get higher grades than they deserve. That's a common thing that I've seen over the years too. If you ask students about teamwork or team-based learning, what they'll say is, I'm the one that always does the work. It's always me, and the others don't pull their weight, or at least there's always at least one person that doesn't pull their weight. And the problem is that it starts to build up resentment because they feel like this person that doesn't pull the weight gets the same grade as everybody else, or gets a higher grade than other people. And so there are things that we can do as faculty members, as teachers, to help alleviate some of those problems. So students dislike teamwork, employers want teamwork, and as faculty, we're caught in the middle. We're caught in the middle of this dilemma. What do we do? How do we make the team experience for our students to be valuable so that they appreciate what it is that they're learning, so that they benefit from it, so that when they graduate and when they talk to employers, they're not already starting off with this negative view of teamwork or team-based learning, but what they're able to communicate to the employers is, we worked as a team, we worked as a group, and here's what happened, and here's what I took from it, and here are the benefits, and here's how a team can actually work together well. How can we as faculty help our students? We have a number of faculty who are part of a program that I run called the Professional Learning Community, and they focus on enhancing and assessing teamwork as part of that particular program and trying to implement some things within their courses. And so I had one instructor who was pondering this question: what's best, an instructor-selected team or a student-selected team, or maybe a hybrid of both? So we've got instructors that realize that even the composition of a team can play a role as to whether it's successful or not. And so she was pondering this problem. What should I do? Should I select the team as the instructor and just put people in a team? Should I put it on the students and say, here, you choose who you want to work with? Or should I do sort of a combination? Let's just ponder this for a moment. Is there anything that you've tried that has worked, or you've tried it and it didn't work? What's your thoughts? What's best, an instructor-selected team, a student-selected team, or maybe a hybrid? Anybody with any thoughts on that, or experiences, things that you've done or you've tried? And feel free to raise your hand too. Yeah, Tom.
It depends on what my goal is. If I'm looking for a team that is very that's not diverse, that's kind of focused in one area, I let them choose. But if I want to create a diverse team, why then I use a random method, or I choose, or I deliberately mix them up. And diverse teams are better for like making them think outside the box, but interest-focused teams are better like if you want them to explore particular areas that are engaging to them.
That's a good point. So an interest-focused team, so maybe you've got a project, and maybe or a project, but you've got several different options within that project. And so an interest-focused team could mean that you're selecting people based on their particular interest in a certain project. Yeah, Shelby, you got a question or comment? I don't know if you're muted. Shelby?
Hi, I just finished my master's in social work at UTA, and actually I normally get really high A's, and because my last group project I ended up like with a low A. But anyway, it was an interest-based solicitation to participate in the project. So, and that's how the team was selected. So it went south, and but that is a good way to get a diverse group added. But it is tough, and I wanted to drop out of the group and do it on my own. And I contacted the professor, and she still had us work together. So it was a good experiment for me because I had to work with them pretty much, even though we agreed, or they weren't as prompt and didn't communicate as much as I liked. But I think overall, as you're saying, it is something that will be required in the workplace, that team effort. So it was a good experience.
Good, thank you. And yes, I had a student over the summer contact me, and it was an online class, and I had assigned them in groups. She said, "I don't want to work with the student. I can't get a hold of him. He's not communicating." And I said, I'd like you to continue to work together, even if you end up doing most of it yourself. I said, the way that it's structured is that it will show up in the grade. And so they did the project was divided into two parts, and they did the first part, and it was obvious that she had done the majority of the work, and her grade reflected that. And the teammate that she was talking about contacted me, and he said, "How come our group got a 0 for the project?" And I emailed him back, and I said, "Your group didn't get a 0 for the project. You got a 0 for the project because there was no evidence that you had actually done the work." And I didn't hear from him again. But the second part of the project, he pulled his weight and really came through and did well. Now, it didn't alter the grade that he got for the first part, but it was a wake-up call for him that he really needed to do his part and to be part of the team. So here's what this professor did in this particular case, was that she used a student survey to determine individual strengths and individual interests. And so it happened to be a broadcast class, and so she surveyed the students and asked them what their strengths were in certain areas. Did you feel like editing video was a strength? Was shooting video a strength? Did you feel more comfortable in front of the camera? What kinds of things do you feel is your strength? And what is your interest in terms of the project? And so based on that survey, she put the teams together to ensure that there was strong leadership, that there was diverse skill sets. What she found after she put the team together based on the strengths was that the students then, once they were part of a team, did not always choose the role that aligned with the survey. So somebody may have said, "I'm a strong editor, I'd like to edit video," but when they got as part of the team, they said, "No, I'd rather shoot the video than edit the video." And the reason she found was that life happens, that factors outside of the classroom had an impact on the team. And so ultimately students ended up selecting their roles, not necessarily in terms of their strengths, but in terms of things like their work schedule or their desire to learn more or less about a particular project, or whether that part of the group meant that they could do more work on their own or less work on their own or whatever. So she had a great idea using the survey, trying to find the strengths and stuff, but she found that students then didn't always come through, and it was legitimate. It was just that life sometimes gets in the way, and that even though they would like to be able to do it, some roles in the team literally took more time than other roles, and with work and with family, they weren't always able to do it. But it was a great idea to use that survey. Here's another example, and this was a staff member in the library, worked with some faculty from engineering. And what they did was they used anonymized data gathered from all the students in the class, and they put together, again, a fairly comprehensive survey. And so they asked the students about their pre-existing knowledge about this particular project they were working on, what they felt their skills were, what they felt their competencies were, related particularly to project management and teamwork. And then what they wanted to do was to put together an effective dream team. In other words, be able to select students with certain skills or certain knowledge or certain competencies, and they could put them together. And so then what they asked the students to do was they gave this anonymized data to the students, and they asked the students to identify team members from the data that possess the best qualities for successfully completing the project. So they asked the students then, have a look at this data, and they didn't know who the other students were because it was all anonymous, but they just looked at the strengths and the knowledge and all these different things, and they decided who they wanted as part of a team. And then the instructors got together and they use this quote, spread the awesomeness. by placing every student in the class onto a team where where the teams would be equally balanced. So it was kind of like a hybrid where students were able to select, but then the faculty also kind of got involved to ensure that there was sort of equality, at least in terms of how the students felt about their abilities or their skills or their knowledge. And here's what they found at the end of the project. And some of the teams worked really well together, and some of the teams didn't quite work so well together. But what they found when they did a pre and then they did a post survey at the end of the semester, again asking students to look at their skills and things, and they found that students overestimated their competence at the beginning of the semester. In other words, in that pre-survey, when they were asked to talk about their strengths and their abilities, that they sort of bragged a little bit, and they overestimated, and they were like, yeah, I'm really good at this, I know how to do that. But then when they actually have to put that into practice and actually do it as part of the team, they started to realize, hey, I'm not quite as competent as I thought I was, or maybe I don't know quite as much as I thought I knew. And so the post-survey showed that they overestimated their competence, and that they rated, again, their beginning competence lower, but reflecting they rated the competence higher at the beginning, but when they reflected back during the post, that then we kind of got more of a realistic view. But again, using a survey of strengths to try and put students in teams. There's another one. This was a public relations professor who used what he called the ABC of, and then it was based on a theory from it's called the reflection and now measurements. And actually, no, I'm wrong. The theory was the ABCs of self-determination theory. So it was an actual theory, the ABCs of self-determination theory. And so the ABCs are autonomy, belonging, and competence. And so he had a project where students were asked to create a public relations plan for an organization. There were 10 different kinds of organizations. 5 of them were for-profit organizations, and 5 of them were non-profit organizations. And so he asked the students to indicate the top 3 choices for organizations from the 10. And so then, based on their what they selected, then he put them into teams. And this was again sort of based more on interest. So there was the autonomy part. He gave them a choice in their assignment. They could choose one of 3 organizations that they would create this plan for. A sense of belonging. There was a sense of commonality with their teammates because they all had the same kind of interest when he put them together. And then a desire to exercise their comment, that again, working at a task that aligned with their passions, their skills, and their interests. So in this situation, it wasn't a survey as such, but he still gave the students an opportunity to select who they would like to work for. And then just one more, and this was in an engineering intro course. One of the instructors put together a survey and conducted a study of gender composition of the teams. And her teams were in 2 to 3 members. And what she found was there was a clear difference for teams that were composed of 2 males and 1 female, that those teams earned lower grades on the project than all other team compositions. So if it was a team made of all males, a team of all females, or a team predominantly female and maybe 1 male, they did better than the teams that were composed of 2 males and 1 female. And so what this, and you know, there's a number of different reasons. We're talking about engineering, we're talking about a lot of different stuff, but what it shows is that even gender as just one variable, one isolated variable in the composition of a team, can make a difference in how that team performs and how that team works. And so she's continuing on with researching in that particular area. So forming a successful team, I want to just focus on what forming a successful team entails. And let me just get out of this slide for a second and show this slide here. So the process of forming a successful team, and I don't know how well, can you see this clear enough? Here we go. So there are a number of things that are important when forming a successful team, and as either Faculty members, either you're teaching a class or maybe you hope to teach in the future, I want you to think about some of these things as you think about putting together group projects and deciding on working, and using a group project. And so team name, one thing that I have found even in my courses and even in an online situation where students have to work together in an online situation, is getting students to come up with a team name is really important. Every team needs an identity. And sometimes just the act of coming together to decide on a name and then owning that name becomes really important. It almost becomes like a sort of a bonding kind of exercise. And I've had groups where students identified themselves as by that group. They didn't identify themselves as an individual, but hey, I'm a part of this particular team. And so it does create sort of cohesiveness and a sense of belonging. Team vision and mission. So a vision is essential for any team, for having clear direction, deciding what it is that you should be. So encourage if you're getting them to work in groups, encourage them to come up with some sort of vision. What do we want to achieve at the end of the semester? Is it that we want to achieve an A on our group project? Is it that we want to learn more about this particular thing? Is it we want to put together a project that we could use maybe in our resumes or on our website when we're showing it to future employers? What is it that we really want to get from this, and encourage them to try and form this cohesive vision? What outcomes and results do you want to accomplish? Again, project and personal goals, which is kind of tied into the vision as well. What are the unique skills that each team member brings to the table? So ask them to talk about the stuff. Have they had an internship in a particular thing and that's given them some skills? Do they have particular computer skills? Do they speak another language? Do they have certain interests in things? What are the skills and attributes that they bring? Oftentimes, again, we throw the students together in a group and we say, here, work together. But we never really encourage them to kind of think through this process and to think about how can we make this a better process. And so help students to evaluate for themselves, what are my skills? What can I bring that can really contribute to this particular team and this project? So, and then there's some other things, roles and responsibilities. Again, we've talked about strengths, but I mean, who will be the leader? Not everybody makes a good leader. Sometimes you need a leader to be kind of out front and to be the person, like the face of the team, but that person who's the leader may not always be the most organized person. And maybe you need somebody who can take notes, or who's responsible for ensuring that people meet their deadlines. It may not always be the leader, but it may be a follower. How will you work together? How will you manage conflict? How will you value each other's differences? Some operating principles are certainly part. And this doesn't have to take weeks and weeks and weeks to do. You can do this in, one class session, or you can give them some of these things and ask them to review it sort of at home, and then when they come together as a team to talk about some of these particular issues. And then communicating norms. This is always a big issue. I can't tell you how many students say, I've reached out, I've tried to communicate, and they won't communicate with me. So from the outset, how will the team communicate with each other? How often should they receive and respond? Should they, does somebody got a work schedule where they cannot communicate during this time of the day, but they can communicate at that time of the day? What's the contact information? What's the best way? Working norms, how's the work going to be divided? Who's going to do what? And when and how are they going to meet, and how often are they going to meet, and that kind of thing. So some things to think about as you encourage your students to work in groups, and just offering them something like this can help to make a difference. This particular slide that I just showed you, this particular page, came from this book here. It's called Teamwork, an Open Access Practical Guide, and it's a guide, a guide or a book that I put together with some other staff and faculty members, and it's part of our quality enhancement plan at the university, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. But this is an open access guide. It's published through the university library, and it's is published and it's available for anybody to use in any class. Now, we're starting to use it in all of the first-year experience courses at the university, but we're going to be using it in many other courses too. I just had a history professor say she has 5 sections of a 3,000 level class, and she's got some group projects, and they're going to be using this guide. And the purpose of this guide is to really get students and instructors to think about the teamwork process and what it means and what it's all about. And to give them a resource, as Thomas kind of talked about in the chat, give them a resource that they could use to help make the team process much more palatable. And so let me just skip forward here. And so there are a number of different sections. It's designed to be very modular. And so it's not designed just to be, you don't have to go through it from beginning to end, although you could. But there are different sections. So we've got a section on just, we've got some learning outcomes that we're looking for, and then just a section on why teamwork is important. There's a section on the benefits of teamwork. What is a team and what are the benefits? Another section, what is a team and how you can contribute? So different types of teams, how you form a successful team. Understanding yourself as a team member, which I think is important. It's just a brief survey that students can take just to get them to start getting to think about their own strengths as it relates to a team, evaluating yourself and your team. This is a section that we found has been very, very useful, and as we've used them in the first year experience courses with the peer academic leaders, a lot of them have liked this section, being a leader and being a follower. The importance of being a follower. So not everybody makes a good leader. Not everybody wants to be a leader. But sometimes the real power in a team and the real benefit in the team comes through the followers and the people that comprise the team. And so being a good team leader, but also being a follower, and then handling conflict in teams. So again, how can you handle conflict in teams? What are some strategies that you can use? And this is designed not to become the complete answer to anything, but certainly designed to kind of help people along the way. Marketing your teamwork experience. How can you take what you're doing in the classroom and how can you put that on your resume? And how can you prepare for an interview? I can't tell you how many students that I look over their resume and then I ask them, well, why didn't you include this on your resume? And they're like, well, I didn't think it was really relevant, or I'm not really sure what to do. And I said, you had this experience in the course. Why haven't you put that in your letter when you wrote to the employer? Well, I just didn't really make that connection. And so this is something to try and help them make that connection. Then we have some testimonials from employers. We've got reflections, and we've got survey as well. And so if you go to the library website, it looks like this is what the book looks like, and then you can click on read the book. And so it's able to be used by anybody. There is a pre and a post survey in there, and there's also a reflection. And so then this is the content section. And it's 100% accessible. The library is very, very good about that, and we've gone through and made sure that it's accessible, and that it's good on any browser, any platform. It should be. The one thing we're having some issues with is just printing it out in like a PDF format or something like that, and the library is working on fixing that up. But this is just how it works. And so we have, for example, the pre-survey here, and they can just click on the QR code or use the QR code, and it will help them do that. So anyway. The quality enhancement plan, the university, if you didn't know, is accredited by an organization called the Southern Association for Colleges and Schools Commission on Colleges. SACS is the entity, and so they are the ones that really ensure that the degrees that we offer at this university mean something. And so they every so often will come and they will check out everything from instructor credentials to class size to handling of finances, all of that kind of stuff. But as part of their accreditation for every university, they ask that each university that they accredit put together a quality enhancement plan, or a QEP. And so this guide that I showed you is part of our university's quality enhancement plan. And so the focus is on teamwork. And so our effort is called Collaborate UTA. And as part of that, we have a professional learning community for faculty and staff. Or we have a number of different groups, and then we've also created this student guide. I keep wanting to call it a handbook, and the reason we call it a guide is because students told us in focus groups over and over that they did not like the term handbook. They wanted it to be a guide. So again, we have a reflection as we go through this, and then we have a pre and a post survey as well, and then we also have an instructor guide. And I will put the links to these in the chat, so that you're able to have this stuff. But with the instructor guide is slightly different. And in fact, let me bring that up, and I will just quickly show you what the instructor guide looks like. Give me 1 second here. Okay, and let me share my screen. So this is the instructor guide, and what the instructor guide looks like, and it's designed to be a companion for the student guide. And there's a few different things in here. So what we have in terms of the instructor guide is we have some just a little section on considerations for online group and teamwork. So some things that you might want to think about or implement if you're doing it online. We've got some sample discussion prompts that you can use to that pair with the material in the teamwork guide. So things about what is a team, and then just some prompts, and these are based on each of the different sections in the guide. So if you're going to have a discussion in class, discussion prompts for that. We've got some sample exercises that you can do. So there are 6 exercises that you could use in your course to help develop teamwork skills within your particular course. And then we have some instructor-created lesson plans. And some of these are examples also from peer academic leaders who have done some really great stuff, and they've got some really interesting exercises that they do as part of their courses with students. But some lesson plans too from PLC fellows, and then from some other instructors as well. I put one in, and this is ongoing. So if you're doing something with teamwork, for example, and you think, I've got a lesson plan or an outline or something that would be really useful, or an activity that'd be really useful, feel free to get in touch with me and let me know, and we'll look at putting that in as part of this as well. And then we've got some case studies, some implementation examples, and different things like that. So that's the instructor guide, and it's just slightly different, but it's designed to be companion to the teamwork guide. And we've found some really interesting things as we've created a survey, and as we've gone through and talked about the teamwork and using this particular guide in the classes. We've found that and then looking at the survey results as well, we've found that overwhelmingly students have said that their appreciation for teamwork, their understanding for teamwork has improved from just over the course of using that guide. And sometimes this is only 1 or 2 lessons in which this guide was used, but overwhelmingly students have said their appreciation, their understanding of teamwork, their ability maybe to handle conflict more, and their understanding of their own roles has improved as a result of using the guide. We also have done some surveys and sort of broken down the data around colleges and different things like that, and we found some really interesting things regarding colleges, for example, and particularly also to do with males and females. And so with females tend to emphasize communication more when they think about teams, whereas males are focusing much more on sort of getting the job done and moving ahead. The one area where things were a little different was in engineering, and females in engineering were again focused more on the process and the outcomes and getting stuff done, and less so on communication. But we're at the moment still sort of breaking down that data and looking at that data and trying to figure out exactly what it all means and where we go. We've got over almost 3,000 surveys now that we're plowing through and looking at the data, and not just looking at the data, but also looking at the reflections. So that's it. That's what I have, and so we have time for